a ship, the largest ever built, declared unsinkable. It strikes an iceberg in the North Atlantic on an April night. Too few lifeboats, hundreds drown. This is not the Titanic. This is a novel written in 1898. The ship in the book is called the Titan. The real Titanic would not sail for another 14 years. Morgan Robertson was not a prophet. He was a struggling merchant sailor turned fiction writer, largely unknown, living in near poverty in New York City. In 1898, he published a novella called Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. It told the story of a fictional British ocean liner, the largest ship ever built. Robertson described the Titan as 800 feet long. The real Titanic, when she was built, measured 882 feet. Robertson gave the Titan a displacement of 70,000 tons. The Titanic's was 66,000. Both ships were described as the fastest and most luxurious vessels of their age. Both were declared, in almost identical language, to be unsinkable, and both, according to their stories, were on their way from England to New York. When Robertson's novel was published, not a single rivet of the real Titanic had been driven. The coincidences do not stop at size. In Robertson's novel, the Titan is traveling at 25 knots when it strikes the iceberg. The real Titanic was traveling at approximately 22.5 knots. Both ships struck ice on the starboard side. Both sank in the North Atlantic in April. Now comes the detail that researchers find most disturbing. The fictional Titan carried only 24 lifeboats. The real Titanic carried 20. Robertson wrote that the Titan's lifeboat shortage was the direct cause of mass death. In April 1912, when the Titanic went down, that is precisely what happened. Of the Titanic's 2,124 passengers and crew, 1,517 died, most of them from drowning in freezing water, while lifeboats sat half-empty nearby. Robertson had written that scene 14 years before it occurred. There is more. Robertson described the Titan as having 3 propellers. The Titanic had 3. Robertson specified that the Titan had watertight compartments below the waterline, a feature its builders believed made it indestructible. The Titanic's 16 watertight compartments were promoted by her builders, White Star Line, as the reason she could not sink. The iceberg opened 5 of them. By the time the ship went under, Robertson's imaginary disaster and the real one had become almost indistinguishable. After the Titanic sank in April 1912, the world went looking for Morgan Robertson. His obscure novella was rushed back into print. Journalists demanded to know, how had he done it? Robertson's own answer was characteristically blunt. He said he was simply a professional sailor who knew ships, and that explanation, uncomfortable as it is for those who prefer mystery, holds up to scrutiny. By 1898, the arms race between shipping companies to build ever larger, ever faster liners was already well underway. Robertson had sailed on ships like these. He understood the trajectory. He knew that the next generation of ships would be roughly 800 feet, roughly 70,000 tons. He knew that British ships crossed the North Atlantic in April. He knew that the iceberg zone in the North Atlantic sits precisely on that route, in that month. And he knew, because every sailor knew, that the lifeboat regulations of his era were dangerously outdated. British maritime law at the time required a minimum of 16 lifeboats for any ship over 10,000 tons, regardless of how many people were aboard. A law written for ships that no longer existed, being applied to the largest vessel ever launched. Robertson was not predicting the future. He was describing the logical, inevitable consequence of trends he understood better than almost anyone. That still leaves one thing unexplained: the name, Titan, Titanic. Both names drawn from the Greek Titans, beings of supreme power, brought low by their own arrogance. Robertson named his ship for what it represented, the hubris of human engineering, reaching beyond what nature would allow. White Star Line's designers named theirs for exactly the same reason: 2 men, both reaching for the same mythological symbol of doomed greatness, 12 years apart. The coincidence of the name is not a mystery. It is the same cultural reflex, made twice. Morgan Robertson died in 1915, 3 years after the Titanic sank. He never claimed supernatural foresight. He never sought fame for what he had written. What Robertson had done, and what makes his book genuinely remarkable, was pay attention. He paid attention to ships, to ice, to the sea lanes, to the arrogance of the industry he worked in. And in doing so, he wrote a warning that the people building the Titanic simply did not read. The wreck of the Titanic lies 2.5 miles beneath the North Atlantic today. 400 miles south of Newfoundland, exactly where Robertson placed the Titan. A man who had never seen the ship, writing in a year when it did not exist, put the wreck within miles of where it would one day be found. Sometimes the most unsettling prophecies are just the ones no one bothered to read.